It's so great to see so many of my fellow college-age women here. I hope you're all enjoying this summit as much as I am. My name is Mercedes Skid. I'm an intern at the Luce Center for Conservative Women, and I'm also a rising junior at the University of Dallas, where I study politics. On campus, I serve as the president of our Crusaders for Life Club, and I'm also a member of our Young Americans for Freedom chapter, through which I had the opportunity to fly to Santa Barbara to hear Paula Scanlan speak at an activism conference. Having heard her speak, I can assure you her testimony is incredibly powerful, and I'm so excited to introduce her to you today. But before I do, I'm reminded of that well-known saying, some are born great, some achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them. When it comes to Paula, I think she embodies a little bit of all three. She couldn't have known the full extent of the greatness God had placed within her before she stepped foot on UPenn's campus. But it was the trials she faced there that thrust greatness upon her, pushing her into a movement she didn't choose, but rose to meet with courage. And now she's also achieving greatness every day, boldly pursuing a mission to defend women's sports from the dangers of trans athlete inclusion across the country. Paula grew up in my home state of Connecticut. As a swimmer at the University of Pennsylvania, she competed on the same team as Lia Thomas. Paula began speaking out during her time on the team, initially sharing her concerns anonymously in Matt Walsh's What is a Woman documentary, before later going public with her message to protect women's sports. Since graduating in 2022, Paula has continued that mission. She now serves as a Stand With Women spokeswoman and advisor for both Independent Women's Forum and Independent Women's Voice. Her accomplishments go on, as she has also been named a senior fellow at America's First Principle Institute and the external director of Early Vote Action. She's become a strong national voice for keeping women's sports female, defending single-sex spaces, and standing up for free speech. That same leadership was on full display this past February when Paula stood directly behind President Trump during the signing of the Keep Men Out of Women's Sports Executive Order, a defining moment in her ongoing campaign to protect women's sports. She is truly a force to be reckoned with, and I'm honored to welcome her here. And now, please welcome Paula Scanlan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you guys all for being here. I'm impressed at how many of you guys have turned out today. It is just so exciting to see a room full of so many bright, beautiful young women that have conservative values that I know are not going to boo me or call me hateful things for simply spreading the truth. So I just wanted to thank you guys for being here. And I know it's summer and there's a million things to do, and I appreciate just your time and being here and being so interested in the message. It's really bittersweet to reflect on my journey and how I even got here, and especially now. I'm not sure if you guys have seen the news lately, but I was actually in Washington, D.C. last week, and I came back here just for you guys, where I spoke alongside Riley, who you guys will hear from later, and the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, and we talked about a win that we just got on the table, getting my alma mater, the University of Pennsylvania, to not just apologize to us female athletes, but also correct our record board and update their policies to properly comply with what Title IX was originally intended to do. It doesn't sound like a lot, but based on the journey in the last couple of years, this is a huge win. This is a huge cultural shift that I've seen, which I'm going to reflect on briefly with you guys and how we got here and how I'm even standing here right in front of you. So I'm sure many of you have heard this story, and I'll go over it briefly, and I also want to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions as well and engage, because I think there's a lot more for you guys to learn from my experiences than just listening to me talk about what I've gone through. And so when I was a sophomore in college, it was the beginning of my sophomore year, I was a member of the women's swim team. I was studying computer science, trying to go on and be an engineer upon graduating from college. And we had a mandatory team meeting, and in this meeting, our coach said, okay, guys, just the women's team needs to sit here, and a member of the men's team was standing there looking at our entire team. And in this, he looks at all of us and says, hey, guys, I just wanted to let you know I'm transgender. I'll be transitioning to your team next season. Please refer to me now with she, her pronouns. I'll let you know my new name change later. Continue to call me Will. So you can guess, this member of the men's team was named Will Thomas. And I had known him for a couple of years as Will Thomas, as a member of the men's team. And this is really where the journey began. And this was back in 2019. So it's been 6 years almost now at this point, which is just really interesting to reflect on. And upon hearing this, I went online and I said, okay, what are the policies that allow this? And I found something online called the NCAA Transgender Inclusion Handbook. And it was pages and pages full of anecdotal stories of men literally wearing women's skirts and dresses with a little quote at the bottom that said, "I'm so happy now that I get to compete on the team that I want to be on." And that was their evidence to why men should be allowed to compete in women's sports. And I noticed that this handbook was written about 2010 or 2011. So at this point, it was almost 10 years old. So I said, okay, this is an outdated policy. I don't know anything at all, but surely the NCAA and the Ivy League and my university will get behind this and figure it out. And this won't never actually be a problem. This will never actually happen. And that was the message that was continually spread to me, to everyone I would talk to. I immediately called my parents. I told friends on my team about what was happening. And everyone said, that is ridiculous. That will never become a reality. And I said, okay, if you say so, I'm just going to keep raising concerns about it over the next couple of years and see what happens. And the thing that's so interesting about this is I was correct to be concerned about it, because it did become a problem. And it didn't just become a problem for me, 19 years old at the University of Pennsylvania. It became a problem for women across this entire country. And so what's so interesting is that everyone expects someone else to do the right thing and fix the problem. And that is exactly what did not happen. And that showed me, as time went on, that it was actually up to me and my responsibility, if I saw something wrong, to say something about it. And so time goes on, and I'm sure many of you guys figured out that, of course, the policy was not changed. And 2 years later, I'm now 21, I'm a senior, and I go back to school for the first time. Actually, we had been online for 3 semesters, so I hadn't seen my locker room for a year. And I go back into my locker room, and I notice there is a locker for someone named Lia Thomas. William had now decided his name was Lia. And he was a member of our team like anyone else and had a locker in there like anyone else. And we were not asked for our consent for this to happen, but we were told that we simply had to accept it. And he was undressing in our locker room with us 18 times per week. And I think the worst part, and a part of this story a lot of people don't fully understand, is how concerning and damaging that is to women. And I'll give you a quick example of something I would deal with. I would be in the locker room by myself, on my own locker, but there would be other women talking and having conversations, and you're not listening to what other people are saying, but you can hear the chatter. And I would hear a male voice, and suddenly I would jump to myself and say, oh my gosh, someone is in here that should not be here. And then I would have to jump myself back to reality and say, wait a minute, that's just the male voice of the 6'4" tall male athlete I'm told needs to be in here. And I would have to, again, jump myself out of that concern and reality. And at the time, I didn't realize really what it was. But upon talking to a lot of experts and professionals about this, that is so damaging, because we're training young girls to ignore their instincts, ignore their gut feelings, and ignore what they know to be wrong. And that's really what they did in this entire situation, and why they were able to get away with what they did for so long is because they told all of us girls that we were wrong, and they tried to essentially reprogram our own gut instincts and concerns. And so, again, being here now and being removed from it, I know that was what was happening, but in the moment it was harder to see that. And so time goes on, and of course he starts smashing records, and I know you guys know all the stories about how, I mean, it's a 6'4" tall man competing in women's swimming. What do you expect is going to happen? But he goes on and competes, and the university says, okay, shoot, the media is starting to realize what's going on. We have to talk to these female athletes. So they sit us down and they say, him being on this team is a non-negotiable, guys. So we're here to make you okay with it. Whatever you need, as long as you're supportive of him being on this team. And they go on and they lecture us about LGBT acceptance. They bring in a representative from the LGBT Center. They have a bunch of other administrators just talking to us. And in this, they just, again, remind us that we're bigoted and hateful if we do not accept him. And one of the worst things that they told us, they said, if you do not want this 6'4" tall man in your locker room, you are the same as the people in the 1960s that did not want to undress with people in bathrooms and locker rooms based on their race. Do you really want to be known as the bigots from the 1960s? And they tried to essentially call us racist for not wanting to undress with a, by the way, white male. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, sure, you can call us a bigot. You can say I hate trans people or whatever, right? But racist? And I'm sitting there, I'm mixed race. I have dual citizenship. I have non-American citizenship. I'm like, I'm really the racist one for not wanting to be in a locker room with a 6'4" tall white male. And that was really when I said, okay, they have nothing really left here other than to just bully and censor us into silence. And I saw through that. But unfortunately, not everyone did. And what I noticed happened after these meetings and the continued trainings they would try to put us through, they made us go continue to seek, have meetings at the LGBT Center. They brought us to other inclusion meetings where they just lectured us about how you're essentially just a disgusting bigot on the wrong side of history. They said, you're on the wrong side of history if you object to this. They said that you'll never be able to find a job if you do not accept this. And they also said, and if everything we've said is not enough, here's the number for an on-campus counselor. Please go seek a therapist because you are the problem, not the man who thinks he's a woman, but you. And I saw through this pretty quickly. And I said, okay, well, this is, maybe I'm, not being accepting. And I said, no, I'm not an unaccepting person. I can see reality here. And a man does not belong on a women's swim team. But what was so scary about it is that it worked on other people. Many girls on the team that I could talk to privately one-on-one before this happened, they were not willing to engage in conversations. A lot of girls who previously behind closed doors were so upset about him taking their spot on the relay or breaking their record or even taking their spot away from the travel squad, because every single time Lia Thomas competed on behalf of the University of Pennsylvania, someone was asked to stay home. All of my teammates who saw this firsthand and were upset by it, publicly to the group, they would talk about how amazing and progressive it was that this was happening. They said it was so outstanding that we were part of this, new civil rights movement and that Lia Thomas was the new Jackie Robinson. Yes, that was a literal quote that was said to our team, that Lia Thomas was the Jackie Robinson of women's sports. Exactly that. This is how they compared it. They said this is the next civil rights movement. That's what we were told. Discriminating against women, violating us in a locker room, and putting us into dangerous situations and unfair situations was equivalent to the newest civil rights movement. That's where they went with this. And I heard all of this and I said, oh, wow, that's really where we are. And also, why is it working on the group? And I realized something upon reflecting on this is that women have a nature to be kind and caring and accommodating. And those are all wonderful things that we have. It's so that we can eventually be mothers and have be the kind, caring person in the family unit. I mean, it's such a beautiful gift that we've been given. And they were able to exploit it completely to put us in this situation and put women in this. And not only just put us through this, but get women to advocate for it and support it and celebrate it even. There were so many people on the team that would post infographics online about how great it was that Lia Thomas was competing and how progressive and amazing it was. But I knew in their heart that many of those people knew that it was the wrong thing. And so for me, it was very challenging seeing a lot of these people I had previously been able to talk to about this, because I knew that they agreed with me and I knew that their stance was the same, but to the group, they were saying something completely different. And it made me think, well, am I wrong? Maybe my gut instinct on this is incorrect. Maybe there's something that I'm missing here. And I would go through all of these emotions and wonder what was right and what was wrong. And it was a really, really challenging thing. But for me, I knew what was at stake. And I saw this issue for something even bigger than men competing in women's sports. I saw the censorship that they put us through. And so after this meeting, I didn't quite stop there. I actually tried to write an op-ed for the school newspaper, and it was retracted with no notice to me or no notice to any of the readers. And I found out the reason it was retracted was because they couldn't stand by, quote unquote, student-led transphobia. But in this article, all I had done was compared men and women's sports times and talked about how the NCAA policy was flawed. And apparently that was too hateful. But what I find so funny is looking in the year 2025, that NCAA policy has been changed. And so I was correct. But in 2021, no one told me that I was. And everyone said I was wrong for that. And it was hateful to be there and to even have that written there. So it was a very interesting experience. And I felt isolated and alone and alone in my opinion, and really did not know who to trust on this. I said, well, everyone around me is pretending like this is okay. Everyone around me is accepting this for what it is. Maybe I should be quiet. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe there's something I don't know. And so I tried my best to talk about it briefly, and then I eventually graduate, and I think, okay, well, yeah, I know it was wrong in my heart, even though no one else wants to admit that to me. But I knew it was wrong. But I said, okay, this is never going to happen to anyone else. This is rare. This is just the crazy Ivy League, which, I can go on about all the things we were taught there that were nonsense. This is just the Ivy League. But after that happened, I actually saw this start to blow up across the country. And notably, there's a story of Peyton McNabb, high school volleyball player, knocked unconscious by a male volleyball player on the opposing team. A horrifying video. Probably many of you have seen it. It's disturbing. But I saw that and I realized, okay, wait a minute. This is not unique to me in my college experience. This is happening across the country. But not only this is happening across the country, but we are allowing young girls to be permanently injured by male athletes competing. And I looked inwards in this moment and I said, okay, if I want to be silent about this because I might lose a few friends or my team doesn't necessarily agree with me, or, the people I know that I grew up with in liberal Connecticut don't like what I have to say, but I'm allowing a young girl to be permanently injured by male athletes because I'm choosing to be quiet about this. And so I really thought to myself, I said, okay, if I'm silent, I am part of the problem. And eventually, and I publicly spoke out, and this was a couple of years ago at this point, and I did lose friends. I did have people in liberal Connecticut tell me exactly what my university had told me. I'm a bigot, I'm hateful, I don't understand these confused trans people, it's the next civil rights movement. I heard it all. But I knew in my heart and in my gut that I was correct on this. I knew what I saw before my eyes, that it was unfair. I knew what I saw before I know what I experienced day in and day out in that locker room of being uncomfortable. I knew what I experienced watching Thomas dominate women on our opposing teams. I saw the girls' faces that lost to him because he was competing for us. I saw all of it, and I knew it was all wrong. And it didn't matter what the group was telling me. It didn't matter what my teammates was telling me. It didn't matter what the University of Pennsylvania told me my life would be if I ever spoke out against it. Because I knew in my heart that what I was experiencing was unjust, wrong, and that I was on the right side of history, even though they told me I would be on the wrong one. And so I ignored all of that. And back then, this was not as popular to talk about. There were a lot of people who were uncomfortable. We flash forward, and now I'm hearing from people I know who are left-leaning individuals that say, I don't like your politics, Paula. I don't like who you voted for. I don't like what you believe. But hey, I just have to tell you, you're right about the trans in sports issue. Yeah, Lia Thomas should never have been your teammate. Yeah, Lia Thomas never should have been on your team. And it's interesting because it starts to become validating that, hey, maybe I was right back then. Maybe trusting my gut instinct was actually a good thing. Maybe I was actually able to change people's minds by simply saying what everyone else knew to be true, but no one wanted to say out loud. And now we look forward to where we are now. And obviously, it was so wonderful to be there when Trump signed the executive order to ban men from women's sports. And I was able to stand right behind him, and I'm in a lot of the pictures there. And I joke about wanting to get one blown up for my living room because it was just really the coolest experience. But I was only invited to be there because I was willing to say what everyone else knew to be true when no one else wanted to say it out loud, which sounds not like a big thing, and it shouldn't have been a big thing. But that's what this issue came down to, is that the common sense position is, yeah, men shouldn't play women's sports, but what happened and why they were allowed to get away from this is because they were exploiting females because we're so compassionate and kind, and they were using that to their advantage to get us to comply with what they wanted us to do. And it sounds scary, and it sounds like, oh, well, it's so easy to snap out of, but it wasn't easy. It even took me a couple of months after graduating to ever want to speak about it publicly. And I'm standing up here and I don't really care about what anyone thinks about me, but it took me that long. It's such a challenging thing to put on young girls to do this, but yet we had to, because if we didn't speak out, Trump wouldn't have signed that executive order. There wouldn't have been all this media coverage on the issue because no one would know about these stories if the female athletes going through it weren't willing to say something about it. And so really what the message I want you guys to take away from right now is how important it is to trust yourself and trust your gut instinct when you know something is wrong, even when everyone else around you is saying something completely different. Because it's people like that that are able to pull over masses. It's people like that that are able to make change. It's people like that that are able to be there when Trump signs an executive order, which again is the coolest experience to even be invited and recognized for that. And so looking forward, the Trump administration has continued to be really great on this issue. Secretary McMahon, Secretary of Education, has been really wonderful on this issue. And so she said, okay, we're pulling federal funding from the University of Pennsylvania for non-compliance with Title IX, because yes, there was a man on my team. And they did that, and the University of Pennsylvania came back and actually said, okay, we don't want our federal funding pulled. What can we do? And they went and negotiated and agreed that they were in the wrong, that they needed to apologize to the female athletes. And the apology was not the best one, and I can get into what that said in a moment, but an apology nonetheless, and updating the record boards to not have Thomas be a record holder on the women's team, and also update their policies to say that they are going to comply with Title IX and have women's sports only for women. And so seeing all of this happen is really interesting to me because it's become this huge news story. And I think, okay, great, common sense. The University of Pennsylvania should have done that a million years ago. But looking to where we were 4 years ago when we were going through this, I never thought this would happen, because the university told me point blank that I would be on the wrong side of history if I ever spoke out against it. They told me I would be labeled as a bigot for the rest of my life. They told me point blank that I was wrong on this. But yet here we are 4 years later, they've essentially admitted that they were wrong. They've admitted that they were in the wrong on all of this. And so it's really interesting to look and see that. And it's almost this moment where it says, like, I want to say I told you so. I want to say, hey, University of Pennsylvania, I was correct. I feel bad in feeling that way. It's almost like, oh, I'm so much better than you. I obviously don't think I'm better than anyone, but it is that sort of feeling. And what it showed me in this entire journey of the last 4 years of really dealing with him starting on the team 4 years ago is just how powerful it is and how good it feels to be true to what you know and believe and value. Because I can look back on all of this, and I don't know how much I actually contributed to changing the policy. I'm sure, right, if I had never spoken out, we have Riley Gaines who's championed this, and she would have been completely fine without my help. But knowing that I was able to say the right thing at the right time and able to be part of this and be on the correct side of history, I can't even explain to you how valuable that feels. And so I'm just going to close off with a little bit about what I can teach you guys, because I'm not even that much older than you, so I feel weird being in a position where, I'm giving you advice. I don't feel like I even have that much to tell you. But truly, what it comes down to is having values and being able to stand up for what you believe in. Because if you do not stand up for your beliefs, why even have them? And that's really what women in general struggle with. I love being a woman. I would never not want to be a woman, and I'm sure many of you in this room probably agree with that. But we are kind and caring, and we are susceptible to wanting to go with the group and worrying about what other people might say about you or think about you, or if people are being mean and you want to be kind. It is challenging, but when you break through it, it is so valuable and so worth it. And being true to who you are is better than being part of a crowd that you don't believe in what everyone else around you is saying. And I can tell you that firsthand. And I know as a college student, sometimes it's challenging to have a belief that's different from others, and you might lose some friends. But what I will tell you is any friend that you might lose over being true to who you are was not a friend to begin with. And I talked to women that are a lot older than me, and I learned that actually from them. They say that actually the sooner that you break away from people who don't value and respect you for just simply being true to your beliefs and values, the better off you are really getting rid of them sooner. And so in a lot of ways, I wish I had spoken out more vocally sooner. I wish I had been more vocal about my beliefs. I mean, when I was in college, I was always conservative before this happened, and I was uncomfortable sharing that with people. But now being 25, I can feel like it's really amazing actually to talk about these things and to be true to who I am and get to meet wonderful people like you I never would have gotten to stand in front of if I hadn't done this. And so I don't know how much, again, I can really even teach you guys because I'm still learning myself. And I'm, again, so grateful for so many different people that have been part of this journey. But I will say, I know that I was right. I know that I was on the right side of history. And I know that I was able to do all of that because I trusted my own gut. I stood in what I believed in. I had values that I stood up for. And that is something that we need more of in this world. And so I'm looking to you guys that are younger or still in college, and you need to do more of that because we need more women that are able to change the world and be part of the right side of history and be true, genuine people. And that's really what this world's missing. And it's up to us to stand up for ourselves. We can't expect someone else to do it. And so there really is no better day to start than right now, being true to who you are and true to your beliefs. And again, standing up to anything that you see. And so I'd love to go into some Q&A with you guys. And again, I'm just so beyond grateful to be here before all of you wonderful young women. And I hope there's something you could have taken away from this. But again, just grateful to even have this support because 4 years ago, I never thought that I would be here now. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much for your inspiring story. I'm sure this hits home for a lot of girls on their college campuses, so it's great to hear from someone who's succeeded in combating the trans culture. Now we'll have time for questions, so please line up behind me. State your name, school, and organization.
Hi, Paula. My name's Meg Williamson. I work at HSP Direct. I was curious now that UPenn has been forced to send out the apology and right some of the wrongs they have done. Some of your teammates who you knew originally thought the same way as you, have any of them reached out, any of them backtracked? I know you recently reshared a text message from one of the teammates that was very hateful when you did speak out. So I was just curious.
Yeah, it's something that's really challenging because it was a team of 38 women. Why don't you guess how many of them have reached out to me? Not to put you on the spot, just take a guess.
3?
2. And it is a little bit bittersweet because it feels like, wow, I really did so much work to get this win for all of us. Really, it wasn't about me, and it wasn't even about my team alone. It was about all of us women in this entire country. But what it does show me is that, well, first there were 2 that were able to say, hey, by the way, I'm really supportive of what you've done. But it doesn't change how I know that I'm correct. And it doesn't change the fact that I know that I stood up for the right thing when I saw it, and those people didn't. And they have to live with that. And I do know that I see a lot of them creeping on my social media. I see them viewing my story. I know that they know in their heart that I did the right thing and they're thankful. But they're not in a place where they're able to admit that. And they're going to have to live with that. And I think that's honestly enough. And again, I don't regret anything I've done, and I know I'm on the right side, and I know most people agree with me. And so for that, they're showing me exactly who they were back then. They're still that person now. So, and I don't want to be like throwing shade at anyone, but it is a little bit, it is sad and disappointing to see that. So I appreciate your question.
Hello, my name is Mary Claire Waldron. I am a rising senior at Benedictine College in Kansas, and I work at the Heritage Foundation. So growing up in high school, I competed in state swim, and that was really a big part of my life. And when this story was kind of breaking, I was still competing. But I always had faith in my institution. I went to an independent school, and they had a great reaction to this problem. But obviously, looking back at this issue and a lot of the other issues that we see in like the NCAA and the college reaction to a lot of these like more progressive issues, obviously we want our daughters to be able to feel safe and comfortable and supported. And so what advice would you have to these institutions so that we can make it like not the responsibility of a 21-year-old woman to then like speak out against, you know, these very powerful institutions? How do we like instill that trust back to where like they should be initially?
You know, I'm not entirely sure what the best solution is here. I mean, I still think so. After the executive order, the NCAA updated their policy. They found there's still some loopholes in it. It's not perfect. It was updated. It's still not a great policy. But I don't trust them. And I don't think probably most people in this room will trust the NCAA to do the right thing for whatever the next scandal is. And so I think that for me personally, and other people could probably have a different opinion, I would say there needs to be an adequate apology and recognition that they were wrong, that they genuinely harmed people. I would still love for the NCAA to reallocate the awards, which they have not done. Lia Thomas is still an NCAA champion, according to the NCAA. There's been no resolution on any of that. That would, at the bare minimum, an apology to every single NCAA athlete that was forced to compete or be on the same team as Thomas. That would be great. Or any girl who had to share a locker room with him, which, by the way, there was like 12 teams at least during the regular season we competed against. But they've done none of that. So I think for me personally, and I know as a Christian, we're supposed to be forgiving. And I think I do try to forgive, but there needs to be a little bit of give back from them. And I think if they came to us and they said, yeah, we were wrong and we are sorry, I would feel much more comfortable with supporting them in the future. But we haven't quite seen that yet. So unfortunately, that's where we are.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have one more question.
Hi, my name is Grace. I'm interning with Congressman Kevin Kiley, and I'm a student athlete. I play softball at the University of Arizona. So thank you for all that you do. I also am from California, so there's a lot happening with CIF, Governor Newsom, the California Department of Education. Respectfully disagreed with their Title IX violations. Obviously, the NCAA and the International Olympic Committee have kind of changed their policies, but what do you see happening in the future to youth sports? Like the person before was saying that she swam in high school. You also see the impact happening at younger and younger ages. What do you think needs to be implemented in order to protect girls younger and younger?
Yeah, thank you for your question. So unfortunately, we do need some type of federal legislation, I think, right? We can't rely on states like California to do the right thing. They should, because in fact, even majority of Democrats don't even agree with this, which again, California, notably blue state. It's sad that their own voter base isn't even being represented by these policies, but here we are. We would need federal legislation to be passed the House, didn't get through the 60 votes in the Senate, unfortunately. And that's where we are. But I do think the majority of Americans are on our page. We really have won in the culture. I mean, I think this is one of the biggest cultural wins we've seen in the last couple years on our side of the aisle. And it's been really amazing to see that. And I think that we have to have people still continue to talk about it and speak out and also hold these institutions accountable. I think the Trump administration has been great fighting back against these states, fighting back against these institutions. And so hoping to keep that up and keep up that momentum. And eventually we will win. And I think it's not done overnight. I know the Supreme Court is going to be hearing 2 cases on this issue. And I think that will be very interesting to track and very helpful when I know the right outcome will come in that. And so, yeah, unfortunately, it's a slow little chipping away at it slowly. But again, the wins we've seen have been great on this, and I know we're going to win out in the end. And so I'm just continuing to have faith in the process and continue to just highlight the stories and protect females across this country.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.